Hi guys, welcome to our week 12 online meeting. I hope everybody had a wonderful week so far. Tuesday was historical, so for the first time in our country's history, we just elected our very first orange president. All right, so let's talk about our this week's material. So we're gonna talk about two chapters. So chapter money and inflation, and also open market. So let's do screen sharing. Share screen. All right, let me see who is here. Veronica is here. Masha, Don, Laura. Oh, Laura's here. Long time no see, Laura. All right, so Diana, Rose, Magali, Sandy. Okay. All right, so let's do money growth and inflation first. And again, guys, just like before, have any questions, just post them into the chat box, and then I'll answer them as soon as I see it, okay? All right, so first remember that this is from chapter 1. The price will increase when government print too much money. The value for money is measured in how much stuff you can buy. So the value for money, just use 1 divided by the price of the good. That will be the value for money. So imagine if you have $1, how much good you can buy with $1. That is the value for money. So $1 divided by the price level, that will get you the value for money. Okay. Money supply, we learned this from last chapter. Money supply is how much money we have available in the economy. But also keep in mind that money supply is controlled by our Federal Reserve. So money supply is independent of the price level. So which means money supply does not depend on price level, but vice versa, that your price level depends on money supply. All right, so money demand is how much money do we need at any given time. Now, there are a couple of determinants for money demand. First, some people want to hold on to money because of the requirement to buy stuff. So price level is a determinant for money demand, because when the price is higher, we tend to need more money to buy stuff. And when the price is lower, we tend to need less money to buy stuff. And also, money demand is also personal preference. That for some of us, we just prefer to have more money on hand, so more cash on hand. And then lastly, if there's any crisis going on, the demand for money always goes up. So if you guys remember, I don't know if you guys anyone was here during Hurricane Hurricane Rita. Remember when everybody evacuated from Houston? So at the time, many people rushed to the ATM, get as much cash out as possible, because if you're on the road, many of the gas stations do not take credit cards, so you need cash on hand. So anytime there's a crisis, the demand for money always goes up. All right. Now here's a money demand, money supply diagram. Now, if you notice, this is a little different than before. So we have 2 vertical axes. The vertical axis on the left is the value for money, which is 1 divided by P. And then the vertical axis on the right is our price, which is just P. But you see how the value for money, it goes from 1, 3/4, 1/2, 1/4. So it's actually going down. And then the price level is going up in the opposite direction. That just means they're inversed. Okay, so it just means that as the price level goes up, so price level goes from 1 to 4, the value for money goes down from 1/2 and 1/4. Now, for the money supply curve, because money supply is controlled by the Federal Reserve, so money supply is independent of our price level. So money supply is going to be perfectly vertical. And then for the money demand, it's downward sloping. So as the price level increases, we need more money supply. Money demand. And then as the price level decrease, we need less money demand. Now, when they meet, so this intersection between your money supply and money demand, this will determine the value for money in the economy. So for this economy, the value for money will be at 1/2, and then the price level will be at 2. Now, however, let's look at one change. So if our economy, if our Federal Reserve decide to increase our money supply, so money supply is shifting to the right. If we shift it to the right, we're going to have a new equilibrium. At a new equilibrium, the price level is increased from 2 to 4. Now, if anytime price level increase from 2 to 4, so an increase in price level, if you remember this from previous chapters, this is called inflation. So anytime your money supply increase, this will cause inflation in the economy. All right, so next, know what's a nominal variable and what's a real variable. So nominal variable, remember from chapter 10 we did, it's a nominal GDP and a real GDP. So nominal variable, they're the value measured in your monetary unit, current terms. Real variable, they're measured in your physical unit, so how much stuff you have. So your nominal variables, they are nominal GDPs, your nominal interest rate, your nominal wage. So nominal wage is just the number on the paycheck. And then real variable is measuring real good. So your real wage is how much stuff you can buy with the number on the paycheck. Okay, so remember the nominal wage is a number on your paycheck. Real wage is how much stuff you can buy with the money on your paycheck. Okay, that's a real wage. Can skip this, not important. Know what's a classical dichotomy? It just means that there is a separation between nominal and real variable. So do not get them confused. So real is measured in physical term, and nominal is measured in monetary term, and they are not the same. Now this concept was made popular by an economist named David Hume. Okay, so this is the guy who came up with it. Now this one is important, so you make sure you know what's monetary neutrality. So monetary neutrality, it means that the change in money supply does not affect your real variable. So another way to put it is it says just because you have more money, it doesn't mean you have more stuff. Okay, so so a change in money supply does not affect our real variable. Now, let's suppose let's look at example over here. So initially, let's say the price for pizza is $10, price for CD is $15. So the relative price is 1.5 pizza per CD. Now, if you double the price on everything, so pizza price become 20, CD price becomes 30, your relative price still 1.5 pizza per CD. So in this case, when both price increase by double, your relative price stay the same, so money is neutral. That's why it's called monetary neutrality. So the price doesn't matter. What really matters is how much stuff you have. Okay, so also know what's a velocity for money. Now, if you guys remember from your physics class, velocity, the difference between velocity and speed is that velocity has a vector. So you know which direction the object is moving to. That's a velocity. So velocity for money is the rate of which money changes hand. That's velocity for money. So basically, for all the money we have in the economy for the entire year, how often do they change hand? We call this velocity for money. And then we have a formula for it. So to find the velocity for money, we use our nominal GDP, which is the price times real GDP, so P times Y, divided by the money supply, so divided by M, that is your velocity. Oh, also guys, if you notice on Canvas, I posted your PowerPoints already. So if you want, open the PowerPoint on your side and then look at it next to each other, okay? So velocity for money is price times real GDP divided by your money supply, so how much money you have. That's your velocity for money. Let's skip this. All right, so this equation is important. This is called the quantity equation. So if you use your money supply times the velocity for money, you'll find out how much money you have in the economy for the entire year equals to P times Y. So price times quantity, that will shows you how much stuff you have. So the quantity equation just shows you that for a given year, how much total money you have equal to how much total income you have equal to how much total production you have. That's a quantity equation. Okay. And also from this quantity equation, we can take a step further. Because velocity never change, so velocity is always the same. Normally, it's always the same. So velocity never change. And then if we remember from what we said about the monetary neutrality and also classical dichotomy, that money supply has no real effect on real variables. So how much good you have is independent of how much money you have. So therefore, there's no relationship between your M variable and the Y variable. So this V is constant, Y is constant. So which means the change in M, which is equal to the change in P. So let me write it down. So the change in M, change. So what that means every time when the government increase money supply, the only thing it does that it will increase our price level. So which means back to the chapter 1 we said before that if government just print too much money, then it will cause inflation in the economy. Okay. So remember that. Let's see what else is important for this chapter. Yeah, this is just basic calculations. You guys, this is pretty easy. Know what's a hyperinflation? So for hyperinflation, defined as any inflation that's more than 50% per month. Now this depends on different textbook. Some textbook, so for our book, called this one 50% per month. For some textbook, called this one 200% per year. But just remember, if you have very, very high inflation, we call this hyperinflation. Right now in the world, there's not that many economies that's currently having hyperinflation. But if you guys follow the news on Venezuela, Venezuela is having hyperinflation right now. By estimate, by prediction, the current inflation in Venezuela is about 400%. So it's a very, very high inflation. And then in the book, we use Zimbabwe as example for hyperinflation. So this happened in 2008. In 2008, the government of Zimbabwe was having trouble financially. So they were printing a lot of money to pay off their debt and also pay for employees. And then what they did, they print too much money, and then inflation was increasing so fast that the money become really worthless. And then if you look at the exchange rate over here, so in August of 2007, the exchange rate of every if you take $1 US, it can change for 245 Zimbabwe dollar. But by June of 2008, July of 2008, this number become $1 US for 26 billion Zimbabwe dollar. That's horrible. That means pretty much if you live in Zimbabwe in 2008, if you have any money in Zimbabwe in 2008, you are at least a billionaire. So everybody was rich. Everybody was billionaires because money was worthless. So which means you're not that rich, actually pretty poor. And then if you guys notice this sign over here, so this is a sign in Zimbabwe. It says toilet paper only. So apparently it's a sign for a toilet. To be used in this toilet, no cardboard, no clothes, no Zimbabwe dollar. So which means at the time, Zimbabwe dollar was cheaper than newspaper. I mean, not newspaper, it's cheaper than toilet papers. And then people use the money to wipe their ass with. Okay, so that's how cheap this money was. But if you think about it, the economy is actually the country was actually pretty safe back then. So in July 2008, if you live in Zimbabwe and if you carry a bag full of money on the street, nobody will bother with you. You're pretty safe because everybody knows those money are worthless. But if you carry a bag full of money anywhere else, you're getting robbed. Okay. So again, the only reason is because the money in Zimbabwe in 2008 was worthless. Nobody wanted them. So many stores at a time, they don't even take Zimbabwe dollar anymore. So if you go to a store in Zimbabwe, well, in many stores, not all stores, but in many stores, if you go into the store, they're only taking US dollar or euro. So you don't even take Zimbabwe dollar anymore. All right. Know what's the inflation tax? Inflation tax is when printing money causes inflation. And then it is like a tax on everybody who hold on money, because if you hold on to the money and the government print more money out, your money on hand become worthless. So that's the inflation tax. Okay, and then for the U.S., for U.S. economy today, no, this number was published back in 2013, but the current inflation is about 1 to 2%. So currently we have a very, very low inflation. All right, I think I'll almost finish with this chapter. So know what's a Fisher effect? So Fisher effect is just that your nominal interest rate is equal to inflation plus real interest rate. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Okay, so the cost of inflation. Know what's the shoe leather cost? Know what's the manual cost? So shoe leather cost is the process wasted when inflation encouraged people to reduce the money holding. Now the idea of shoe leather cost is that, let's suppose we have inflation. So we have very high inflation. So which means consumers or people don't want to hold money on hand, because if you hold on to it with all the inflation, your money becomes worth less and less. So you probably want to put your money somewhere else, like say in a saving account that carry a very high interest rate. But because that you don't keep much money on hand, and you have to go to your ATM, go to your local banks, withdraw the money, and the process of withdrawing money is very costs a lot of money. It's very costly. So we call this shoe leather cost. That eventually the shoe leather on your shoes are wear off. Okay, so there's a cost of inflation, and the second is menu cost. That is the cost of changing price. So imagine that if you're a restaurant and then you've already print out your menu, and then you have your each item and then the item cost on the menu. So let's say we have chicken fried rice, and then we price for $5. But with inflation, that eventually we need to increase the price on the chicken fried rice. But to increase the price, we have to reprint our menu. So there's a cost associated with increasing the price on the item. We call this the menu cost. Okay. So tax distortion. Well, you don't have to know definition, just know what it's about. It's just that your tax is based on nominal income, and then it's not adjusted for inflation. So every time when the inflation goes up, when your nominal income goes up, but your real income stay the same, you will be paying a higher tax. So that's called tax distortion. All right. Okay, so that's that. I think we finished this chapter. Oh, last slide for this chapter. It's called arbitrary redistribution of wealth. Let me see who is here last. Oh, Kimberly is here last. All right, so let's suppose I'm gonna borrow some money from Kimberly. So Kimberly, let's say I borrow $10 from you, and I promise to pay you back this time next year, and I'll pay you back $20. Well, that sounds pretty good, right? Because I borrow $10, next year pay you back $20. That's 100% interest rate. But imagine that currently our country have a 200% inflation rate. So if I pay you back $20 next year, this $20 next year will be worth less than the $10 today. So anytime you have a very high interest rate, people who borrow money, they're better off. But anytime you have very, very low inflation rate, people who borrow money are worse off. Okay, so that's called the arbitrary redistribution of wealth. Let's see. Okay, so that's it for this chapter. Does anybody have any question on this chapter? So mostly definitions. All right, no questions. Okay, so if no questions, let's do the next chapter. And then guys, again, if you have any questions on the mind tab homework, just let me know, and I can make extra videos for you on YouTube. Okay. All right. So next chapter is the chapter on open economy. So some basic concept on open economy. Again, most of the definitions for this chapter too. So know what's a closed economy, what's an open economy. A closed economy is an economy that does not interact with other economy in the world. Open economy is the economy that interact freely with other economy in the world. Most of the economy today in the world are open economies. But if you look at the economy of North Korea, a very special country. So North Korea is a closed economy because they do not interact with other economy in the world. That's why you cannot buy anything from North Korea. And if you go to North Korea, they don't sell anything that's made in America. Okay, that is a closed economy. All right, so we know this before. So import, export, and also net export. So net export is your export minus import. Let me see what's next. Oh, this is important. So some variables can influence your net export. So first, consumer preference for foreign and domestic good. Sometimes the consumer doesn't matter what kind of good you have. It's just sometimes we just prefer to have more foreign produced good. So for example, like we produce wines in America. So there's California, Napa Valley produce a lot of wines, but we still prefer wines from Italy or wines from France. So those would be consumer preference for foreign good. And then if you think about it, you guys probably like Justin Bieber, right? So so for Justin Bieber's Justin Bieber is an imported good because Justin Bieber is Canadian. Oh, Rose, the PowerPoint is already uploaded on Canvas, so take a look. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. And then next is the price of good at home and abroad. So this goes back to just between your import and export, or your foreign good and domestic good, which one is cheaper? So if foreign good is cheaper, we'll buy more foreign good. And then next is income for consumers at home and abroad. Now this one goes to whoever has more money. So anytime if our US consumer have more money, we tend to buy more foreign produced good. So net export will decrease. And then if anytime your foreign consumers has more income, they have more money, and then they'll be buying more of US produced good. So our net export will increase. Okay, so it depends on who has money. And then next is exchange rate. So exchange rate, this depends on which currency is more valuable, and then therefore make a huge difference in the price of the good. Let me give you an example for this one, because this one is having a very big impact on our consumers today, or at least in the case of my wife. Currently, she's buying a lot of stuff from website that's based in UK. The reason why she's doing that, because for the ever since the Brexit in June, so when UK decided to exit Eurozone, the British pound, so their currency has been becoming less valuable. So the US dollar becoming more valuable, the British pound become less valuable, and all of a sudden everything that's sold in UK is cheaper now. So that's why my wife has been buying a lot of stuff from UK, because those price, even though in terms of pound hasn't changed, but because exchange rate changed, so those goods are cheaper in UK now. Okay, so that's another factor for net export. Transportation costs also important. So if the transportation cost is increasing, then we tend to either decrease import or decrease export. And last one, government policy. We learned this before. So every time you have a tariff, every time you have a quota, that will definitely impact our net export. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Next one. Trade surplus and trade deficit. Anytime your import is more than export, that's called trade deficit. Anytime you export more than import, it's called trade surplus. So for our economy, for the US economy, we'll be having a trade deficit for a very long time now. And then balance trade is anytime your import is equal to export, that's a balance trade. Very few country has a balance trade. So you either have a deficit or a surplus. And then if you look at the Chinese economy, they're having a surplus for the last 27 years now, for the import. Now, this is the chart for the U.S. trade deficit for last, what is it? It's hard to see. Since 1960. Okay, so 1960 or 1950? 1960. All right. You notice how in the early 1960s that our export was more than import. So back in those years, we're having a positive net export. But ever since the start of 1980, so ever since this point on, our import is more than export. So ever since this point on, we have a negative net export. So every year when the import is more than export, we call this a negative net export. So that is a trade deficit. But if you guys notice, see this huge drop over here? So this is 2008? So in 2008, both our import dropped and our export dropped. Now, the reason why those two dropped at the same time, this was because of our last recession. So the 2008 recession caused both import and export drop. Okay, but still at the time, our import was still more than export. Now the flow of capital, so net capital flow is your domestic resident purchase of foreign asset minus the foreign purchase of domestic asset. This is also called net foreign investment. Now, if any of you guys taking a business class, you'll be learning this in your international business class. So net foreign investment, we take how much investment our domestic investors make overseas minus how much investment that the foreign investors purchase in our country. So that's your net foreign investment. Let me see. We don't need to talk about this. Oh, let's talk about it. So foreign direct investment is when domestic investors actively purchase foreign investment. So when McDonald's opened a fast food restaurant in Moscow, there will be a foreign direct investment. The foreign portfolio investment is when investors purchase foreign stocks. So instead of opening a restaurant in Moscow, let's say if you decide to go to Russia and actually purchase the stock of a Russian restaurant, there will be a foreign portfolio investment. So two different investments. And then for many of the developing countries, they are receiving foreign direct investment. So countries like so every time when Nike opening a new factory in China, that's a foreign direct investment. But for many of the developed countries, they tend to receive more of the foreign portfolio investment. So many foreign investors from overseas, so investors from China, from Europe, from Saudi Arabia, when they come to America, they tend not to open actual stores, but they will do more often. They'll actually purchase the bond or the stocks of our U.S. companies. So in America, we tend to have more foreign portfolio investment, and in the developing countries, they have more foreign direct investment. Now, this foreign portfolio investment is also known as the foreign indirect investment. So they mean the same thing. Okay, it just means that investors, instead of actually buying asset, but you're buying ownership of the asset. So either a stock or a bond. All right, let's keep going. There is one. Okay, this is important. So net export equals to your net capital flow. Net capital outflow. It also equals to your saving minus investment. So by doing saving minus investment, you will know how much your net export is. Yeah, that's not important. There is one. Okay, so notice, know what's a nominal exchange rate. So nominal exchange rate is the rate at which one current country currency trade for another currency. So many of the exchange rate you see today, they are the nominal exchange rate. Now, since we just elected our very first orange president, let's talk about this nominal exchange rate. Now, if you guys watched the election on Tuesday night, you probably noticed that they mentioned in the news. It says the U.S. future, the U.S. stock market future decreased by more than 800 points. At the same time, the next morning, when the market opened, peso, the Mexican peso value went down, so peso become cheaper. Now, the reason why peso become cheaper is that many investors believe that once Donald Trump become president, and then, or he will become president now, and then once he enact all his policies, the demand for peso will go down. Because if Donald Trump take away NAFTA, and then if we put restrictions on trade with Mexico, then there's a lower demand to actually have Mexico pesos. So the demand for peso goes down, therefore the value for peso goes down. So that's what happened with peso. Okay. And then another one, if you notice that the euro and also the British pound increase in value compared to the US dollar. Now, the reason why that is because many investors feel worried about the US economy, so they take the money out of the US economy and put into euro asset or British pound asset. Therefore, demand for those currencies went up. That's why those currencies, the value went up too. Okay. So know what's appreciation? So appreciation is anytime you have an increase in the value for the US for the home currency, and the depreciation is anytime you have a decrease in the value for currency. That's called depreciation. Now the real exchange rate. So know this formula over here. So real exchange rate is your the nominal exchange rate times your foreign price or domestic price divided by the foreign price. So know what that is. Okay. Now, for example, suppose we have a Big Mac costs $2.50 in US, and it will cost you 400 yen in Japan. So if you're looking for the real exchange rate, so first use your exchange rate to 120 yen per dollar times $2.50 for a Big Mac in America. So your Big Mac should cost 300 yen in Japan. But our real exchange rate, so you use what the Big Mac should cost in Japan divided by the actual price of yen, actual price of Big Mac in Japan, which is 400 yen. So the real exchange rate is 0.75. Now, what that means? That means for the money you spend in America to buy a Big Mac, you can only buy 0.75 Big Mac in Japan. So which means the 120 yen per US dollar, this exchange rate is not very accurate. This exchange rate actually should be much lower. I mean, when I say lower, I mean the number should be higher. So the US dollar should be more valuable. Okay. And then the reason why they use Big Mac, for example, over here, there is an index. It's actually called a Big Mac index. Now, the reason why that is because if you go to most of the country in the world, you have McDonald's, and if you go to every single McDonald's, they have Big Mac. And then Big Mac doesn't matter if you buy them from Japan or buy them from US or buy them from China, they're all the same Big Mac. So if you look at how much a Big Mac is, then you can find out how much the relative price is for each country. So for example, if you look at the Big Mac in Europe, it probably costs more than a Big Mac in America. There are many reasons. There might be one reason because the currency value is different. The other reason might be because just everything is more expensive in Europe. So there's an index called Big Mac index, and you guys can look for it. It's online, so just Google it. It's from Economist, the magazine. Let me show you what it looks like. So just Google Big Mac index, and then they have this interactive tool from the Economist, and then you can play with it to see which country have the highest price on Big Mac and which country have the lowest price on Big Mac. So right now, as we're speaking, or right now in 2016, the highest price on Big Mac is in Switzerland. So in Switzerland, let me see. Right here. So in America, each Big Mac by default is set, I think it's set at $5.04. Let me see. Yeah, 504. So for America, each Big Mac costs 504. And then in Switzerland, each Big Mac costs about $5.59. So in Switzerland, the Big Mac is more expensive, but the exchange rate between US dollar and the Swiss mark is it's almost equivalent. So it's 0.99 mark for $1. But the Big Mac is more expensive in Switzerland. So which means that if you buy a Big Mac in America compared to buy a Big Mac in Switzerland, that you can only, well, how do I put this? The Big Mac in Switzerland is 30% more expensive than the Big Mac in America. So Sweden has a higher price on Big Mac. And then if you look at let's look at China. So for China, a Big Mac will cost you only $2.79. So Big Mac is cheaper in China. And then the exchange rate is 6.68 yuan for US dollar. So if you do the math, the currency is actually undervalued by 44.7%. Now let me show you how to do the math. We can use the formula we learned today to do the math over here. So let's do this. All right, so to do the 44%, let's first use your, let me get my calculator open. Guys, if you want to, you can do this with me so you can see how I do this, okay? So open a calculator. Now, a Big Mac in America will cost 5.04, and a Big Mac in China, in their currency, is 1860. So if you do the 5.04 US dollar for each Big Mac times the exchange rate of 6.68, so 6.68, then a Big Mac in China should cost about $33.67 yen, right? So 5.04 times 6.68, but the Big Mac only costs 1860. So use 1860 divided by 33.67. And then subtract 1. Then you have your 44.7%. Okay, so use your 1860 divided by 33.7. That means that's the ratio of how much the Big Mac cost in China compared to how much Big Mac cost in America. And then subtract 1, that shows you how much the Chinese yuan is devalued by. So which means the Chinese yuan is significant devalue compared to the US dollar. So that's why many good produced in China has advantage over good produced in America, because they are cheaper. Now, if you look at this chart over here, the country with the lowest price on Big Mac currently is Ukraine. So in Ukraine, each Big Mac only costs $1.57. Now, this wasn't the case before. Long time ago, let me see. Here, where's Ukraine? Well, it doesn't here. So back in 2006, oh man, every time I move it. So back in 2006, see Ukraine. Oh, can't talk it. All right, guys, if you move your mouse to 2006, you see Ukraine in 2006 wasn't the last. Stop it. So 06, in Ukraine, each Big Mac costs $1.84, but by 2016, each Big Mac costs only $1.57. So over the years, the price of Big Mac in Ukraine has been decreasing compared to the price of Big Mac in America. But in their own currency, that wasn't the case, because in 06, each Big Mac cost 9 Ukraine dollar, and then by 2016, each Big Mac cost 39 Ukraine dollar. So in their currency, the price has went up. But in our value, the price of Big Mac has been going down in Ukraine. And the reason why that is because the Ukraine currency has been devalued dramatically over the last couple of years. That's because what's happening in Ukraine. So all the civil war going on is decreased the investment in the country. So nobody want to invest money into Ukraine anymore. So the demand for Ukrainian currency goes down, therefore the value for Ukrainian currency goes down. So that's why their money is worthless. Well, not worthless, almost worthless. All right, so let's keep going. So that's your Big Mac index. Let me see what else to talk about. Know what's the purchasing power? So purchasing power parity is that the one unit of currency should buy the same unit of good in all countries. So so if this is right, if this purchasing power parity hold true, then there shouldn't be any Big Mac index. That means every Big Mac in every single country should be at the same price. But that's not the case because we have different factors into it, like transportation cost, exchange rate change. So with those informations, with those factors, the purchase power parity doesn't always hold true. Okay. All right, so that's it for this chapter. Now, does anybody have any questions right now? Any questions? All right, so if no questions, guys, let's take a pause here and then continue next week. So guys, do your homework and do your quizzes. Have any question, let me know, and then I'll be more than happy to. Oh, there's one question. So Laura says, question 3 on chapter 32. Okay, Laura, let me do this. Let me go offline now, and then I will make a video for numbers, the question you asked, and I will make a video on YouTube, and then you guys can go onto my channel and then look for the videos, okay? Or just go back to this page. I will post the link for the videos in the comment section. All right, and number 5. All right, anything else? So number 3, number 5. Okay, all right, so have any more, just let me know, send me an email. Okay, so guys, I'll make the videos now, and then you should be seeing them within 30 minutes. All right, so have a nice week, and then good luck. And don't worry about the election, because the next president will be in office in 4 years, hopefully. All right, so guys, I will see you next week. Bye-bye.